This is Solve It for Kids.
Hello, my amazing and curious friends. My name is Jennifer, the Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, and this is Solve It for Kids, the podcast that gives kids and families a peek inside the real world of scientists, engineers, and experts as they solve problems in their jobs using creativity, cooperation, and critical thinking. And now please welcome to the show my podcast partner, Galactic Space Geek, Jeff Gagne.
Hello, Jennifer, and hello, listeners. I'll tell you right now, if this guest and this topic doesn't get you to listen to an episode of Solve It for Kids, we don't know what will.
This is going to be an outstanding episode. What problem are we solving today?
Do all jellyfish have stinging snot?
Do all jellyfish have stinging snot? Now that is a really, really interesting question that probably most people would not even think to ask. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
Luckily, we have the guest that has answers to the questions we're gonna ask. She is the wonderful Jennie Janssen. She is assistant curator at the National Aquarium. She is also president and co-founder of MIAZS, Minorities in Aquarium and Zoo Science.
Welcome to the show, Jennie.
Thank you so much. It's good to meet both of you.
Yeah, we are thrilled to have you. And yes, we get to talk about aquariums and oceans, which, as Jeff said, is like my favorite part. Love space too, but love oceans.
Excellent.
So I love to start out with, did you always, as a kid, love the ocean and the ocean creatures?
You know, I was fortunate to have access to the ocean, but honestly, my fascination started with sharks. And it was more about sharks on TV. It wasn't
okay.
going to the ocean on summer vacation or, even being, near the water or near a river. But seeing shark programs on TV as a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, they're fascinating. And they kind of gave me goosebumps when I would watch them. And National Aquarium was actually our local aquarium. And so I would
nice.
The National Aquarium, we were fortunate enough to have a membership. Yeah. And I would always go sit down in front of the shark tank where it was kind of dark and they would swim by.
I love that.
I would get as close to the windows as I can and hope that their faces went right by me. And I would look until it kind of gave me the willies.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. They were just so cool. And you would look at them and look at their muscles. And it's like, they're so sleek and just like perfect and beautiful. And just, they swim with almost no energy,
right?
No motion.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Yes. Cool. I think you are talking directly to a whole bunch of our audience, kids and adults, because I think we've all put our face right up to it. I've got a question specifically about that. Yeah. When you're staring into those tanks, typically the sharks are not in tanks by themselves. No. What caught your eye about the sharks versus something else, some other kind of fish or mammal in the tank?
So the particular species, a lot of the particular species that we see in a lot of aquariums throughout the U.S. are the sand tiger sharks.
Yes.
And they tend to swim super duper slow, which means you can easily walk with them, keep right with them, right and track with them. You can get a really good look at their eyes. They also swim with their mouth a little bit agape with their teeth kind of hanging out. Those snaggle teeth, and those are pretty intimidating.
They look fierce, right? But but sand tigers are not that fierce, are they?
I mean, they can certainly do a lot of damage, but they are they're not that fast swimming predator game fish that you usually think of. But in their own neck of the woods, they're a predator. So,
definitely.
What a great characteristic to have noticed that they're slow. So you were able to learn and see more about them as they were swimming by. That's cool.
Yeah. So, and I will just bring up, have you ever looked at their skin? their skin, those scales that they have.
Yes.
Not close enough.
I have
their teeth.
Yes.
Look how crazy is that? Having your teeth all over your body.
It's amazing. So I'm curious, since you were this close to the aquarium, did you end up as a kid or as a teenager or young adult kind of working there as a volunteer or anything? Is that how you got into this, or can you tell us about that?
Not initially. I had, when I was in high school, and I looked into it, but the scheduling for, the commitment that they had wanted didn't match what I was able to do. So that wasn't something I was able to take advantage of. But through the membership, we would get like newsletters and things, and I was always kind of keeping on the activities, and not that I participated a lot, but just kind of was always aware and a fan of the organization. Okay. But it wasn't until I was in college, because even at that, growing up, I'm Chinese American. I was born in Maryland, and in our culture, in the culture of our family, it was being a shark biologist was not a realistic, I think in most families, that's probably not a realistic goal, but certainly in my family, it was like, no, you're going to be a doctor, or you're going to be a nurse, or maybe somebody's wife,
shark biologist doesn't make that list very often.
No, because that's only things that people on TV do.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So, it wasn't until I went to college, and then I was taking some biology courses as sort of my foundational classes. Right. And one of the teachers happened to be a fan of sharks and mentioned it. So that's I taught him after class, and I was like, hey, I also love sharks. And so we sat and chatted about our geekiness about sharks. And then he was like, I have a friend who is studying shark parasitology at the Tennessee Aquarium, because I was doing college and I'm just outside of Chattanooga. Okay. So right in the neighborhood. And he was like, yeah, do you want to meet him? And I was like, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So he introduced me to him. I went to his office. We chit-chatted about sharks. And then he just off the cuff offered me a research internship.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
I didn't know what an internship was.
Right.
I never heard the term before. And I feel like, at the time that I was going through school, internships were not a very common thing.
Yeah, they only have been in the last,
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, of course I'd love to do it. And then after I got home, and again, we don't have Google then. So it's like, I went home and I was like, what is an internship? The shark guy was going to invite me to do something.
How cool.
That is really
amazing.
Cool. Okay. How did you meander from sharks to jellyfish?
Yeah. So after much schooling, but then I actually started working in an aquarium, got to work with sharks.
Wow.
My dream of swimming with sharks every day for pay as an employee.
Congratulations.
Eventually, yes. I was working at the Georgia Aquarium, and I had the privilege of working on being one of the senior aquarists. And aquarists are people who take care of aquariums and the animals within them, and all of the plumbing and the life support and the feeding and everything to do with their care. I was one of the senior aquarists on their whale shark exhibit. And after several years working there, so much to talk about. But eventually there opened up another senior aquarist position in another area of the aquarium. And so just to broaden my knowledge, because now I've been working with sharks for like 10 years.
Wow.
I was like, let's switch into another area, at least get a change of scenery, work with some slightly smaller exhibits.
Small. Yeah, slightly smaller.
Plumbing.
Smaller than the whale sharks. Yeah.
Instead of buffer editions of 50 and 100-pound bags of bicarb. Instead,
exactly.
We can actually, measure things out myself, and, not so many cooks in the kitchen, but switch to another gallery and was gifted the world's largest jelly chrysal. And a chrysal is the term for a jelly holding tank, or it could be a plankton holding tank.
Okay.
It is designed with rounded walls so that things that live in the mid-water that don't swim so much, but more drift around in the mid-water, don't land on the bottom. So they're round so that you keep things up in the water column.
Oh,
no kidding.
Is so cool. I mean, that makes sense. Yes, because they don't have the ocean currents and all that kind of stuff in a tank. Oh, that's amazing.
There's so much engineering that goes into a jelly chrysal, and there are a bunch of different kinds of chrysals, but
we're gonna have to talk about that later, because hello, engineering and aquariums, that's awesome. Well, first, can I tell you that we've had one of the Georgia Aquarium aquarists on here who works with sharks.
Excellent.
And I have been able to visit Georgia Aquarium behind the scenes and see how the sharks were taken care of and see them feed the whale sharks, which I could sit in front of that tank for about 8 hours. Like, they'd be like, ma'am, it's time to close. You need to go.
We used to have our morning meeting there every day. And it was
my gosh.
Nice.
It would go by in an instant.
It's amazing.
It was so great.
I also love jellyfish. I have always loved jellyfish. They're so mesmerizing to watch.
They are.
And so the aquarium that I went to as a kid was Shed Aquarium in Chicago, which is also amazing.
Great.
So, okay, now, because we could talk about aquariums all the time.
Sure.
Your question is about, do all jellyfish have stinging snot? And I saw this. I saw this in a paper that you've researched, that you've done. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know a lot, not like everything about jellyfish, but I've never heard of stinging snot. What is this?
Yes. It is hilarious, which is wonderful, because it is stinging snot, and yet it is also high caliber science.
Okay.
Listeners, did you hear how her voice changed to make that sound more academic?
That's awesome.
Because that's what we have to do. It's like we are the true geeks of the world. Yeah. And when you find something that is incredible and cool, you're like, this is nuts and amazing.
It is.
We need to tell everybody. And then we change our writing style.
Exactly.
To make sure that we are being professional and communicating.
Well, yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
In a defined format, which is, all good. But also, yes, it's stinging snot. Not all jellies have stinging snot, which is I think the reason why it had not been described yet.
That makes sense.
It was one of those things where, as an aquarist working in an aquarium, you've got your hands working in the water with the animals all the time.
Yes,
right.
You're cleaning their exhibits. Sometimes you're moving them around. Yes, jellyfish, the ones that are of the stinging variety, they do sting. So, we will use gloves sometimes, but if we are careful and we're not actually touching them, we can put our hands in the water, and not get stung. However, anybody in an aquarium who has worked with upside down jellies for any period of time knows that, if you're working in their exhibit, even if you don't touch them, because they sit on the bottom. Again,
okay.
Their bells are on the bottom. They're on the floor. And their tentacles are up.
Oh my gosh.
Because they have the dinoflagellate, we've heard of like zooxanthellae, sort of like corals. That lives in their tissues. And so they turn upside down.
Oh my gosh.
The sunlight, similar to the corals. Stinging jellies are very closely related to corals. So they can have better access to that sunlight. So you will often see those upside down jellyfish, which are Cassiopeia genus. Those Cassiopeia, you'll see them in the mangrove areas, like in Florida, where the mangroves, they're shallower.
Right.
Have their roots in the salt water and the sandy beds, but their top greeny and woody parts are up out of the water, getting the full sun. Those Cassiopeia will be down between the roots. Those areas have that slower moving water because of the mangroves protecting and creating that shelter. They also create great shelter for, juvenile fish that are growing up. They're great.
My gosh.
Sounds. And those Cassiopeia are there soaking up the sunlight. And because they are in that area, they also have access to those very little fish that can also be food sources for them. But we don't know how they derived this or like why. But being an aquarist working with Cassiopeia, I could be scrubbing their window or gravel washing the tank and working with them. And then after I put the tools away, then I'm like, okay, my arms are burning. My forearms are burning. What is?
Gosh.
But you never touched the jellyfish.
But I never touched them.
Yeah.
Then you also go back and look at the tank, and you can kind of see the webs of snot in the water.
Oh my gosh.
Them up. Because as you work around them and kind of stir them up, disturb it, they start exuding this snot. And, you know, I always kind of look at it like, I'm sorry, I woke you up. I'm sorry, you're a little upset at me, whatever. But, you know, it makes you really think. It's like, oh, well, if there's a school of fish going by, well, then here, this snot, if I can incapacitate somebody.
Yes.
Then
they'll
dinner.
just kind of drift down to me.
That's dinner, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh
so,
my gosh.
The crazy thing is, so they have this snot, and if you like try and net it out, I mean, it's goo, it's snot.
Yeah.
And if you look at it under a microscope, there are individual cells in the snot that are what are stinging.
Oh my gosh. That's insane.
And those cells have their own zooxanthellae, you know, they're photosynthetic of themselves. So they're their
gosh.
own energy. And they are motile, self-motile, meaning that they can swim themselves around.
These little tiny cells.
So
Holy
they have not been described before, which any public aquarium aquarist who has worked with Cassiopeia knows this phenomenon.
Well, has felt it, is what you're saying.
Felt it,
their arms.
Experienced it. And so, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I for sure thought everybody's got to know about this. Surely somebody has looked at this. So I never even thought of it. But we have a partnership, a collaboration with the jelly crew at the National Museum of Natural History at the Smithsonian.
Right.
And we periodically do field trips to just let's geek out together. And, you know, we've done periodic research projects together. And on one of their trips, we were going through the exhibit and it was like, oh yeah, we just gravel washed. So they're, you know, the stinging snot is up. And they were like, stinging snot. And I was like, yeah.
Oh my gosh. They didn't know about it.
And it was like, no, we've never actually looked under the scope at that. And so it was like, let's slurp some up. And, you know, how we do. Like, let's just look at what's in the gravel.
Awesome.
Take pictures and videos. And so they went back and they were like, you know what? They're like, you know, we've totally seen this before where you go out into the field and you kayak or whatever, you put your hands in the water or you're walking around out in the mangroves or whatever, and you get stung if you're not covered. Right. And it's like, but you always kind of figure, oh, well, is it the salt? Is it something else? Not really sure.
Right.
Sure. In the aquarium setting, that's the only animal in there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know, there's other microbes and things.
Yeah, but
that is generally the only animal in there that this is from. We know that this is from this animal. So they were like, well, let's look at it. So they went back and did a literature search. Nothing in the literature.
That's incredible. That's incredible because jellies have probably been studied for many, many years. Many, many years.
So this is fascinating.
Yes.
Listeners, Jen and I have our mouths agape with all of our teeth out, just going wow after wow for this story. But I want to know, when you geeked out, and I love, listeners, I think you might have skipped over it, so I have to just reiterate, you can have a career by doing what Jennie just said, which is let's slurp up some stinging snot.
Yes.
And study it. That's what she does as a career, and she's awesome. So when you slurped it up and studied it, what did you find when you were studying it? And is there anything in there that says why just these types of jellies have it?
So I will tell you, so this is the beauty of collaboration, because working in an aquarium, our primary job is to take care of the animals.
Yes.
And by having the collaboration with the Smithsonian, they have more of the analytical tools.
Yes, that makes sense.
And the expertise and all the fancy fun lab toys. So we have the source where it's like, hey, let's look at this snot. And they also had Cassiopeia that they are taking care of.
Right.
Okay.
They hadn't thought to, you know, so we looked at and it's like, there are cells in here. And there are cells in the snot.
That's mind-blowing, honestly.
Really is.
That's not something you ever expected to see, I'm imagining.
I mean, I can't say I've ever looked at snot underneath the snot, but
Well,
But
we don't have stinging stuff in our snot, so you know.
Exactly. So, or it might be stinging someone else, but we shouldn't find that out. You know, so luckily for us, we had this partnership. And so the Smithsonian crew took it, they looked at it, they did a deep dive. There was a student who was working on, a couple of students were working on their master's degrees, going towards their PhDs. So they set them on the task.
I was going to say, that's like the perfect PhD research. Yeah. Wow.
And believe it or so, the stinging cells, because they are cnidarians, starting with a C, which the corals are part of, that the jellies are part of. Those are the stinging group of animals. There is a conference called NidoFest, again, starting with a silent C.
Wow.
So they presented a poster about our stinging snot at NidoFest one year.
Were you guys like inundated because people hadn't really seen all this before?
I mean, it was such cool stuff. And eventually it was published, which is the paper that you saw. And as it was getting published, when we had the publication date, there was this whole process of like the marketing teams. It's like, there's going to be an embargo of the information until such a date.
That's like how they do for book releases.
That went out. And so people had like done interviews so that when the paper came out, multiple magazines and outlets, it was like, I think it was picked up by the, Forbes and the Sci-Fi. Something. They were like,
Science Friday, NPR probably had it.
Picked it up too. All different places picked it up. It was a little bit insane. It was so cool. And it's so great to have such excitement in the general public, as well as the completely non-science related news outlet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
That's what's cool is when the science makes the world all around. That's what's amazing.
Interesting things. It's like, this might not affect your life directly, and yet it might.
It might.
It might the next time you go to the beach.
I mean, you never know. Okay, so I have to ask what probably all of the kids are thinking. What does it feel like when you're stung? Like, is this a burning sensation, or is this a, oh my God, my arm hurts so bad it's going to fall off sensation?
It depends on the jelly.
Really?
Jelly.
Okay.
It depends on where you got stung, and it depends on how many different stings you got.
Okay.
Yeah. So it really does depend. And then, of course, there are individual people have different.
True.
Okay.
Those are things you need to think of. But we've definitely seen, anecdotally, definitely where, the jellyfish at the aquarium, they definitely do sting. But, there's this conversation where it's like, aquarists are like, yeah, I get stung at work. But man, if I actually go out to the beach, I get stung way worse. So it's like they're
okay.
And what is causing that? Is that an effect of, multiple generations that we have at the aquarium, or the conditions? Because at the aquarium, we keep things very stable.
Yes.
It's all about optimizing for the animals. In the wild, it's like, and we have a heat wave, and there's a hurricane coming, and all these variables.
And there's all these things that, upset the jellies.
Or that, we feed them foods that are, easier for them to digest, or whatever it is that are nutritionally optimal, that, they don't have to work as hard to prey. Whereas like out in the wild, they were like, we're going to hit it with everything we got because I want the meal.
There you go.
You never, those are questions that we don't know how to answer, but we do see kind of an anecdotal, which is just storytelling between professionals of, this is what I've experienced, and I've experienced this, but not anything really examined in a scientific or data-driven way. But certainly there are certain kinds of jellies that can just kill you. Those exist.
Right.
We try to not keep those at the aquarium for reasons.
I don't that makes sense.
Anyone's spouse or their, parents, whatever it is.
Bob, after this morning's meeting, it's your turn to feed that jelly over there.
Yep, definitely. But we do, they're stinging jellies. We do want to make sure we have precautions. And of course, we have first aid kits like anywhere else.
Of course.
Right. But, when you were describing the jellies that are on the bottom, forgive me, the name is slipping out of my head.
Upside down.
Okay.
That is the common name.
You described how you had your hand in the tank and you weren't touching them, but you didn't feel the sting until you took your arm out of the tank. So it wasn't an immediate thing.
It was not, which is one of those kind of, I think, things where you're like, what could it have been? Because it was not immediate, could it have been something I did after? It was not more than maybe a couple of minutes.
Okay.
But it begs the question of what causes the stinger to trigger.
Yes.
Is there a delayed reaction in the stinger triggering for humans? What is it? But certainly for me, it was like after I was done doing the work, or maybe it was because I was slowing down and now I'm like, what is happening? But it was never enough in the moment to like, I need to get my hands out. That
okay.
And certainly on your hands, certainly the fronts of your hands, your palms, you've got a lot of, your skin's thicker because that's what you touch the world with.
Right.
Whereas if I'm working with other jellies that have a more distinct sting, that is a little bit more what seems purposeful. Like if I get if I have a nettle that gets its tentacle on the back of my hand, I feel that right away.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And that one is like prick, burn, pull my hand back, and those for me, I will actually like develop an itch like a mosquito bite.
Yeah.
So, and I'll get a little raised bump.
Yeah.
There's such a wide variety of what can happen, all from jellyfish.
Yeah.
They're just that different.
And there are some kinds of jellyfish that do not sting, because what is very interesting about the group of animals that we call jellyfish is that they are not one group of animals. No. They are in, if you think of like, animal, if you think of kingdom, phylum, order, they are in multiple phyla.
Okay.
They are not all cnidarians. If you think of jellyfish in your head and what that might be, there are some of the jellyfish are also ctenophores, which are, they actually do not sting. So they're not part of the cnidarian group. And they're also super duper cool.
I think
talk about bringing it back to the super geeky science.
I know. And again, ctenophore is ctenophore with a silent C in front. I don't know why we love that, but silent C in front.
No, jellyfish. I mean, I've always been fascinated. When I was a kid, my parents took us down to Clearwater Beach a long time ago. And I got stung by, I didn't know what I got stung by, but we took me right to the lifeguard and he said it was probably a Portuguese man of war. And they put some kind of paste on there or whatever. And it kind of took
baking soda back in the day.
It was. I think it was that.
Okay.
But that one I felt like you feel the ping, and then you're like, whoa, ouch. So, but
I've also been stung by one of those.
Yeah, they're not fun. That one hurts for a little while.
Oh yeah. That one hurts. Yeah. That one is like I need assistance. And not because your body is shutting down.
No, it just...
I'm getting out of the water. I don't know where that is, but I don't want to do that again.
Exactly. So, but I'm curious, are they doing more research now that they learn this about these upside down jellyfish? Are they trying to figure out what's in the, like the stinger and all that kind of stuff? Are they going to...
There are definitely more and more papers coming out that are referencing for a variety of different topics. So there's a lot of different kinds of research that kind of comes
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah. I love that.
And that's one of those things that's great about, publishing peer reviewed science is because when it goes out there, then there are all these tendrils of knowledge and research where it's like, ooh, this thing that they said relates to mine, or their project gave me an idea, and now I'm going to reference that.
Yes.
Or they found this interesting tidbit that actually gives me a different way of thinking about this other thing that I'm studying. And it's so cool.
So that actually, you're so smart, Jennie. That actually leads right into the question I wanted to ask, which is, since the discovery and under a slightly better understanding now of this stinging snot in jellyfish, have any other animals exhibited this trait? Has anyone else figured out, oh, well, this kind of fish or this kind of mite, and oh, hey, we found it, or not yet?
I have not read about it, but we did find that more than just the Cassiopeia that we were studying do have it. We looked at a few the jellies that we had access to say, do you have these cells? Do you have these cells? There were a couple of other species that we happened to look at that did, but there were certainly some that did not.
Wow.
So we didn't find them.
That's very cool.
So whether or not, we look at, I think it's going to become one of those things because people are still discovering new species of jellies that have never been described before.
Exactly.
Or now that we have the tool of looking at DNA and sequencing, that we can say, we thought that these two animals were the same species, but now that we've actually looked at DNA,
they're not. Yep. It's amazing.
That opens up a whole new lane of questioning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so as you're looking at those animals and sort of redescribing them, then that becomes one of those things that you start to ask. If you have access to an animal that is alive, that you can observe the ability of them exuding this snot, or that they're just in there and you can sample the water to see if there is snot at a much less snotty level, but are they giving up these cells?
Routinely, you're looking for patterns and you're looking for all of the different things. You're looking for
another trait,
instigations, right? Like what causes it to come off. And there's all these things you can do. Well, I want to shift a little bit here. I want you to tell us a little bit about how everyone can come visit the National Aquarium and also mention your Minorities in Aquarium and Zoo Science and what that is all about.
Yes, absolutely. So National Aquarium is in Baltimore, Maryland.
It is.
It is down in the Inner Harbor. It is a beautiful place to be. We are on Pier 3 and you just come down there. We have memberships. If you live in Maryland, there are lots of different kind of Maryland discounts because as we all know, when stuff is kind of accessible to you, you kind of forget to take advantage of it.
Yeah, that can happen. Yes.
Yeah. So for like the for the workers out there, we will do, like Fridays after 5, start your weekend, make it like date night. And as you know, in the ocean is when it starts to go into the evening, the community kind of shifts a little bit. So as you're
exactly.
Later in the day, you might see the animals maybe in a different place than time, or doing slightly different behaviors than you've seen before, which is really cool. But it's a great way, and they do it at a reduced price so that it makes it an accessible thing. They also do, different discounts for, Maryland residents who want to come in during the weekdays in the mornings, get in before like the school groups or the crowds come in and, just enjoy your neighborhood community aquarium.
Yeah.
And at the same time,
or visit it.
World-class facility.
It is. Or visit it. I was just there with my husband earlier this summer. I was up there for a book conference and we had a free day and we were like, oh, we're going to the aquarium.
Yes.
So it's really beautiful facility too.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's so great because there's always something for everyone.
It is. Yes. Yeah.
It's a place where you can go and enjoy the beauty. It's like you can see the animals, you can see them up close, watch what they're doing. See animals you never even knew existed.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
What a snippet of the world would look like in a place that you might never go to. Learn about like stinging snot. I don't think we don't have any stinging snot signage anywhere, but learning the interesting things about these animals you never, like humans don't do this. Why would I? Animal does.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
And it's a joyful, uplifting, educational in a not like beat you over the head with it kind of way.
Yes.
Learning is fun and it's a wonderful day.
Nice.
Yes.
And everyone who works there is just focused on the animals and their environments and is so passionate about everything.
Yes.
Jennie, what's MIAZS?
So MIAZS is Minorities in Aquarium and Zoo Science. And it is a nonprofit organization that I founded 2 years ago to help bring more diverse perspectives and cultures and people into the aquarium and zoo science world.
Fantastic.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I have been in the aquarium field for like 20 years, and I love this community and this field and this career so much.
It shows.
And yes, definitely.
Thank you. And I look around the community, but I also haven't seen it shift much in demographics. And another colleague reached out to me and she noted, she was like, I see this and I feel like we're perpetuating a thing, not necessarily knowing that we're perpetuating a thing. So like it's on purpose, but not intentionally.
Yes, so that can happen.
What can we do to change that, because I feel like there are so many great minds, because in the world of conservation, which is what aquarium and zoo science is all about.
Yes, it is. Exactly.
We need good and smart solutions. We need to engage all types of people. How do we do that if we're not actually involving or engaging all types of people?
Yes, that is the problem. Exactly. Yeah. So this sounds like a great organization. Yeah.
And it's been really great because, as you know, I've been a manager now for like 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so having the Animal Experience Foundation and then also now a management experience of being a hiring manager, what is the process that we go through to find people, to recruit people, the selection process, the interview process, people asking, how do we get into these careers? And what people typically say, but is the answer that we're giving how we all got into it? Or is the answer actually the most efficient way to get it there?
Exactly.
Different answers.
They are. So, yes. We could talk to you forever because I love talking about aquariums and everything, but we do have to end this episode. So our last question that we always like to ask all of our guests is, what challenge do you have for our listeners? I'm curious to hear what your challenge is, Jennie.
I would like to challenge everyone to go look up see if you can find 5 different kinds of jellyfish.
Oh, okay.
And within that, see if you can find one that does not sting.
Oh, cool.
Because there are definitely more than one. Because jellyfish can be found in salt water, in fresh water, in brackish water, in warm water, in cold water.
Gosh, everywhere. They're everywhere.
All different body shapes. They have different colors, different sizes. And they are very surprising.
This is fantastic.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. All right. This has been a truly intriguing and fantastic chat. Thank you so much for being on Solve for Kids, Jennie.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And that is why we have to ask the questions that not too many people know to ask.
That's right.
What a fabulous episode. Oh my goodness. I guarantee a whole bunch of listeners are going to be looking up jellyfish and learning more about them, which is good because Jennie's challenge leads us right there of finding and looking up 5 different types of jellyfish and at least one of them that's not a stinger.
Yes. Oh my gosh, this was so cool. I mean, I love jellyfish and I've always watched them and I had no idea they had stinging snot. Of course, I am not the one sticking my arm into the tank with them. So that kind of makes sense. And my one experience with jellyfish, not so great. So, but I love watching them because they're just beautiful, beautiful creatures.
Fascinating to watch.
So I want to know, if you guys go out and do the challenge, what's your favorite jellyfish too? Like, do you have a favorite one?
Right.
And then share it with us on social media. We are at KidSolve at Facebook, Instagram, and X. And we always have a page for each episode on our website, solveitforkids.com. So make sure you check that out as well. But I also challenge you all to go to your nearest aquarium. Ask your parents to take you to an aquarium in person if you can. If not, there's a lot of these aquariums have video cameras that you can watch and see how many jellyfish you can see.
And I'm going to add on to that, these jellyfish conversation was so fun. Find out more about how they take care of the jellyfish and maybe even dive all the way into why are they so important in the oceans and the ecosystems where they live.
Absolutely.
Jen and I will be doing it. Until next time, you'll hear Jen and Jeff on
Solve It for Kids.